Well, everyone, I'm delighted to welcome Will Witt to the Story Box podcast today. Will is part of PragerU as well, and he does a lot of amazing things with that. Prager has over 3 billion views, and Will has been interviewed or had an article written about him on the New York Times as much as I could find. Will, welcome so much to Story Box podcast.
Thank you, man, for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure, man. I guess we're putting your last name to the test, being witty.
Yes. If I had $1 for every time I heard that joke, I'd be the richest man in America.
I just had to say it. But yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to have you. I usually have one question that I love asking people to start off with, and that is, what does success look like to you?
Success to me, it used to look like something else. And now, it changes a lot within my own perspective. But in reality, I think success to me means having the people who you truly care about be proud of you, happy with you, and love you. Seriously, I know this sounds kind of corny, saying, people gotta love you and everything like that. But as I've gotten more clout and more fame and everything, getting, like you said, billions of views and everything like that, the things that I've come to value the most are the relationships I have with those who are closest with me. As when you get more popular, it's much easier to get disconnected from these people. And so I find the most success in my life with the people who I actually really care about. Now that doesn't, go ahead.
You finish up, man. Sorry.
Yeah, I was saying that doesn't mean that, things like the amount of views that I have and the amount of people I've influenced with my videos and PragerU as well isn't successful as well. But on a personal note of what I find to be gives me the most joy is the personal relationships and feeling successful with those.
I love that, man. Where did this idea of success come from for you? Was it more of a gradual thing over time, or was there more of a catalyst moment in your life?
I guess it was more gradual, but it happened because I didn't value those relationships at all throughout my life. Mm-hmm. I guess my relationships with my family wasn't always that great. I just grew up with my mom and sister and half brother. And, my mom and I weren't very close. And then my sister and I weren't that close. My brother was like my father figure to me, and we were close, but then we got totally disconnected. And then I didn't really have a whole lot of really good friends. And so eventually I've built these relationships up again. My relationship with my grandparents it's flawless now. My relationship with my mom is amazing. My sister is great. And then I have a couple of, just best friends who are my absolute rocks, an amazing girlfriend too. So it's just the people who I really care about, I put everything into, and then they give the same back to you. And that's something that I've realized going through this. And you find out when you, again, get a bigger audience, you find out who the real ones are and who aren't.
Oh, absolutely, man. I'm curious to know about this idea of relationships and how come they weren't strong, and how you actually decided, or why you decided to actually make them strong in the first place.
I think a part of it was my fault. Actually most of it's my fault, especially with my mom, who was my main person. I was a teenager at the time and then going to college, and I was just very selfish. I put myself before her. I put myself before everyone else. I didn't listen to her advice. If she, didn't want me going out and do something, I would lie and say I'm spending my night at a friend's house, and then, go and party like a lot of kids do. But I guess I did it more than other people. And we just didn't have any trust in our relationship. She didn't trust me to be out on my own, and I didn't want to hear anything that she had to say. And it really brought us apart from each other, which was a sad thing. But I can't tell you how much happier it's made me now, how much more fulfilled in my life I feel now that her and I are on great terms, and that she is one of my, best friends, and we call and talk to each other all the time. Like it radically changes your life to have your family members be a rock for you, a supporter for you. And like, that's part of the reason why I am a conservative, is because conservatives really believe in the power of the family and those kind of values.
Mm. So you mentioned there that you're going out partying, doing all these sorts of things, and you didn't really have a strong connection with your mum, and there was no much trust there. I'm curious, what was the catalyst to make you realize, hang on a minute, I need to change?
Yeah. So I was when I eventually went to college, I did pretty well in high school, grades wise and extracurriculars and everything. So I was able to keep on my stuff. But then in college, I was very, on my own. And I was never a political person until I got to college. We can talk about that later. But in terms of the stuff with my mom, I screwed up a lot of things. I started failing all my classes, and I didn't have many good friends, and I partied all the time, like some people do in college. And I was at rock bottom in some ways at the end of my freshman year of college, and I didn't know where to go. My mom, even, despite me not listening to her advice and being rude to her, she was there for me and supported me through it and helped me get back on my feet and start college my sophomore year at a much better pace. And eventually I was able to get better and not really get better, just have my relationship be strengthened with her, and us both work together to make me be successful and have our family be successful.
And for those people that are listening that might be in the same boat, can you describe what rock bottom looked like?
I think the rock bottom for me was it all has to do with priorities. So priorities is putting things that give you enjoyment over things that give you happiness. So you can sit at home and you can watch Netflix all day and it'll bring you temporary enjoyment, but it doesn't bring you any sort of happiness. The same thing goes with partying. You can go out and party every night and you might feel enjoyment of it, but you don't feel very happy the next morning when you wake up, right? Or having relationships with bad friends who, might in the moment make you feel really good about yourself, but afterwards, they don't have your back. They don't have your best interest at heart. They don't want to push you up. These are things that bring you enjoyment, but they don't bring you happiness. And a lot of the time, the things that bring you happiness, you have to work towards that happiness. Happiness is not just given to you because you want to be happy. Happiness is earned, something that you have to actually try at. And so rock bottom for me was basically putting all these things that gave me enjoyment. I put them at the forefront, and I didn't actually think about, what would be setting me up for later in my life or what would actually make me a better person. It was all just, doing things the easy way. And it just, all those things piled up at once. And I, eventually failed my classes, was partying all the time, couldn't get out of that. And then, didn't have many close friends or anyone to support me. So, but then my mom, she was there for me.
The love of a mum is something else, isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Second to none, man.
Yeah.
I'm curious about this idea of happiness and joy. So do you know the difference between them, or what do you think is the difference?
So you mean like happiness and joy in like a sense with religion?
Or with religion, with relationships, with just life in general as well?
Yeah. Well, I guess I was talking about like enjoyment before as like things that you just find enjoyment from are the more negative aspects. And then you have happiness, which is more like a fulfilled feeling. You're not going to be fulfilled by something that only gives you a temporary enjoyment. But happiness is something that is long lasting. You're building a relationship with someone or something that is going to continue to influence you in a good way throughout your entire life. It's not just going to end when you wake up in the morning or anything like that. It's something that is long lasting. And it's a lot of times, I'm a Christian person now myself. I was never a Christian another thing. I was never a Christian my entire life. I was a pretty staunch atheist person.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah. And so a lot of that joy actually comes, from religion. The things, the lessons and the things that you follow from religion actually are a great indicator of if you're doing things that are going to make you happy or things that you just enjoy for a little bit.
So let's talk about that for a moment, because I myself am a Christian too, brought up in a Christian home, got saved when I was 5, reaffirmed my salvation when I was 10. And sort of, you have those down moments, like you walk away from God, then God brings you back, and all that sort of stuff in my life. But I know for a fact that he's real. So when did God make himself real for you in your life?
I'll start off with this, that I was very atheist.
Yes.
Like very much so. Yeah. Like my brother was, like I said, he was like my father figure. So, he was my masculine role model. And so, he was very atheist in what he believed in. And so me being the little brother, 4 years younger, I just wanted to be him, that's all I wanted to do. And so everything he believed, I parroted in every single way. And so in turn, that made me that way. It didn't really start occurring to me about the values of religion until, I guess, first is history, when you look at the history of America and you look at the founding fathers and how they actually wanted to establish this country, I mean, look, it's written in there where every man is created equal with inalienable rights endowed on them by their creator. You know, that's something that really struck a chord with me, that these founding fathers who created this amazing country that we live in knew this, that all men are created equal and that you don't get your rights from the government. You don't get your morality from the government. You get your rights and your morals from God. And that was like a really big thing to wake me up. I mean, that was something that really not just woke me up to religion, but also conservative thought in general when I started getting political my sophomore year of college. But honestly, Dennis Prager, I mean, the things that he's talked about with religion, he's, if you're familiar with him, who started PragerU. I mean, he's Jewish himself, but, you know, he has a series about the 10 Commandments. I'm not sure if you've ever seen that. I highly recommend you check out his series on the 10 Commandments, but it's a very detailed explanation on each commandment, why it is in there, why it's in the Bible, why it's said the way that it's said, and like why you should follow these values. It's a really, really good series. And to me, that like, I was like, wow, if every person in the world followed these commandments, like the world would be a better place. Mm-hmm. And that like changed my life when I started realizing that. Especially because, you know, being an atheist my whole life, I saw just the negativity there was towards religion and Christianity and everything. And I really believed it. And then I just saw these videos about the 10 Commandments. And I was like, how are people thinking this is like evil? Like it's telling you to like do good things for your communities, for your families, for yourself. Like these are all good things. Yeah. Like I don't understand how they could be deemed as bad. And so, yeah. Those are some of the main things. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling on about that.
No, keep going, man. I find it fascinating. And with the 10 Commandments factor about why people see it as evil almost, I think it's because for many people, they see it as, oh, thou shalt not do this. And it's like, oh, I don't want to be told what to do. So I'm just going to go completely against it. It's like we are conditioned almost because of sin to rebel and go against God. And it's almost like God put the 10 Commandments there for those people who want to try and follow it as best they can, for those people that actually believe it. But those who don't will obviously reject it and have everything under the sun to say about the 10 Commandments and how bad it is, but they'll try and go against God, really. They're just basically rejecting God. You reject his words, you're rejecting him. It's the same deal because basically the word of God is God's mind and God's heart. Like that's why he wrote it for us. And that's what really, like a lot of people, for a lot of Christians, they try and brush over the 10 Commandments as best they can. And, oh no, it was written way back then for the Israelites and all that sort of stuff. It doesn't apply to us today. Well, no, there's, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet, thou shalt not. All those things are part of our daily life. They may have old style language, quote, to them, but they still are very real in today's society. If you are a Christian and you do believe in God and you do want to follow and do right. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is because they feel like is old, but it's not.
No, I totally agree. And again, another thing that woke me up to all this and made me a Christian person is the idea of morality being objective versus subjective. Is that people think that morality is just, you know, you think this is bad and I think it's good. You know, we disagree and it's just, you know, we have different morals. But you can't think of the world that way if you are a Christian who believes in God. You have to have an objective morality. If morality is subjective, then someone can go on and say, oh, the Holocaust with Hitler, you know, who's to say that's evil? If there's no higher power telling you what is evil and what is not evil, which is where we have, you know, thou shalt not murder, which is part of the 10 Commandments, then anything can be construed as evil or good or somewhere in between because there's no objective morality. So having that higher power telling you what morality is was like, wow, that's definitely true, you know, because who's the decider then of morality for all of the laws that we put in place and and everything we do in this country and across the world for centuries. Who is the one to decide whether this is good or bad if it's not God?
Mm. And then we look at the morality aspect of our society, and then we look at the justice system as well and the laws that govern our society. It's like, who are we following? Are we following the government because the government was the one that gave them the power to actually instill the laws, or who are we following? And that's always been a massive question in my mind of this idea of injustice versus justice and actual morality on laws. Where they're getting them from? Is it just a human being saying, look, this law is right because I believe it is right? Or is it right because it is morally right and it is going to bring about the best form of justice, or what we perceive to be right or just in our society? I was doing a deep dive into this at uni just last semester about this very thought of justice, or what is just and what is not just. And I was always curious about this thing where we create laws that are unjust themselves. And so is there such a thing as real justice? Can it be achieved? That's always been one of my biggest questions that I've asked people is, do you believe that we can actually achieve a just outcome for everyone involved? Or is it possible?
I also don't know the answer to that question, but I can answer it as best as I can. I think that we have the justice that might come while we're living in our human forms on earth now, and there's a certain type of justice that are based on human laws. But the real justice that should be fair, because God is an omnipotent being who knows everything that we do, who knows the exact punishment because he knows all. That is the justice that we should be really looking forward to, more so than the justice that is happening here on earth. Because as we already know, humans are flawed, and no one's going to be the perfect Jesus Christ citizen living here, right? And so to think that we're going to make some system that is always perfect for valuing justice and giving people the correct sentences and making it fair for everyone is not impossible, I don't think, but it's very, very difficult for something like that to happen. But I do think that it could, in a logical sense of whether it could be possible or impossible, I think it could be possible if it were to happen, but I don't think probable at all.
So it's possible if we look at it from the standpoint of Jesus being the ultimate one to achieve justice, but it's probable, you can correct me if I'm getting this wrong, probable if we as humans try and achieve the right form of justice, even though we are flawed and do make a lot of mistakes.
No, I'm saying it's improbable. It's improbable that we would ever make something that's perfect to make it all just for everyone.
Yeah, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. I like that analogy, man, especially when you mentioned the system of things, because like I found for a lot of different things, like the government is a system, universities and schools are systems as well. They put set practices in place and all this stuff to achieve a certain outcome. And it's like in a way, it's kind of like brainwashing. In a sense, like they're giving you all this information, they're telling you what to think and what to believe. And if you don't, then you're not going to be quite marked. I don't know what it's like in America, but here in Australia, like universities, and I experienced this last semester actually with some of my uni assignments, like I would hand them in and then I get back a result and it basically be, this is not correct. And I'd be like, why is it not correct? And then they would go down and they'd tell me about how it's not from a quoted textbook, but it's from a person that actually wrote the textbook. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah. If it wasn't from a source of an actual textbook written and for a university sense, but I was actually getting the person that wrote the damn book in the first place, they wouldn't count that as credible. So they marked me down. And it was like the most ridiculous thing on the face of the earth. But anyway, I won't go off on a tangent on that. But this idea of what's right and what's just is just a fascinating topic to me. And I think you answered it perfectly, man. So
thank you.
I'm curious about this factor of your life, about how you got involved with Prager. And you do a lot of talks about politics, and they're very fascinating. So I encourage everyone to go and watch them. I've watched a couple of them. And how did you get started in all this?
Yeah. So like I said, my freshman year of college, I kind of screwed up like we were talking about before. And then my sophomore year started again new, but I screwed up my college sophomore year too, but I did in a different way. And it was actually a good way. So, I mean, I failed all my classes and stuff, but I was fine with that because I started getting involved in the political world. And I had, again, waking up to all these things, I just saw how terribly that anyone with a difference of opinion was treated if you had a conservative opinion. And at the point when I was a senior in high school, that's the last year of high school before you go into college. At that last time, I mean, I didn't even know the difference between a Republican and a Democrat. And then by the time I'm a sophomore in college, I'm just like full steam ahead because I saw how terribly that if you had a difference of opinion at all, they ostracize you. They wouldn't let you speak. They said your opinion is not valid. And so I saw that and I started just doing tons and tons of research about conservative thought, reading books, watching videos, articles, all sorts of stuff. This was when Trump was going to get elected for the first time. So this was 2015, 2016, or 2016. And I just decided to get very involved in the political world in Colorado, which is where I'm from. I started working for an organization called Turning Point USA, if you've heard of them before. And then I started watching PragerU videos because I just wanted to learn more. And I made a video on my campus where I was asking women what they thought about the wage gap. You're familiar with like the gap between men and women. Of course, they all thought that they were super oppressed and not getting paid enough. And so then I sent it to PragerU. I taught myself how to edit the video and all that. I sent it to PragerU. They loved it. And then they said, you want a job? I said, yeah. And I dropped out of school, moved out to Los Angeles with no money, not knowing anyone, just drove across the country and started working for PragerU.
Wow.
And that's kind of how it started.
Yeah. That's a fascinating story. So when you started PragerU, was it hard at first, or were you sort of like hitting the ground running and just excelling?
It's definitely hard. I mean, trying to create a brand for yourself is hard for anyone, even if you're really, really good like me,
The humility, man. Love it.
Exactly. Just kidding. But you know what I mean? It's like, it's very hard to like start from nothing, especially in the political world, especially being a guy who's at that point, I was 20 years old and I'm I look a lot like a lot of these other people who are in politics, a straight white male. I looked like a ton of them and I had no, why would someone look at me and say, why are you an expert in something? You're an idiot. You're 20 years old and you don't know anything, And so it's very difficult for me to start out and start doing things. But the number one advice that I tell everyone when they're doing this is that, are you familiar with Ben Shapiro? You know who
I am. Yes, I love Ben Shapiro.
So Ben Shapiro is very, very smart, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he can talk about any topic, political topic there is, right? He'll talk about abortion and climate change and social, anything. And this is what someone who's my age, they say, I want to be the next Ben Shapiro. They say, I want to be able to talk about any political topic and go off and do this. And I said, I can't do that. There's a million people who want to do what I do and want to do that. I need to find a niche that fits me the best and then move forward on that and build and carve that out, And that's why I think I've been so successful and why PragerU has been really successful. We found things that are very specific to us and we haven't strayed away from our brands. We haven't tried to be everything or do everything. We tried to stick with what we know so that people say, okay, this is Will Witt. He's an expert in this subject, or he's the guy who's really good at talking to people because he's practiced for years now and is the best at getting people to expose themselves for what they believe. Things like that. It's like I set myself up in a certain light, a certain way so that I could be successful. So I wasn't just trying to be like everyone else.
I love the mind of Ben Shapiro. It fascinates me as well. And I love like these political matters. of, and I've always been curious about why they are more political than anything else, like abortion, the same-sex marriage bill, all these things. Is it because the government sort of makes them laws? Like, is that the only reason why they are political matters? Like the Black Lives Matter movement, all these other areas, like, are they just political because the government has made it so, or what? Why is it that?
I think there's a lot of ground for opportunity in politics. So are you familiar with AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?
Yes.
Here in America? Okay, so imagine a politician like that. And she went on the record and she said, the world is ending because of climate change. We only have about 12 years left, right? No one else is saying that who she's running against. So she takes climate change and she says, I'm the only politician who cares about climate change. If you don't vote for me, the earth is going to die. Another politician comes on and says, oh, I'm the only politician who cares about the life of the unborn, right? About abortion. So you need to vote for me for this issue. So things that shouldn't be, up for debate, or that shouldn't necessarily be political topics, become political because a politician, their campaign sees it as an opportunity to win a certain demographic of votes. That's what I believe. People can politicize anything. I mean, look at this George Floyd protest. I mean, the George Floyd stuff, it was every single person, conservative, Republican, Democrat, leftist, all of them were like, yes, George Floyd was killed unjustly. The police officer with his knee on his neck, that was a bad thing to do and he should serve time. But somehow, even though everyone agreed with that, we still get so completely divided. We're the most divided we've ever been in this country, and everyone hates each other and everyone is just using it for political gain, whether, not dependent on the side. And it's like, how can, something that is so innocuous is like, we all agree on this, and then it totally just splits off into all sorts of different sectors. So everything is an opportunity for people to push their agenda on everything.
Yeah, man. Like, I wish I had more time to sort of dive right in. And
I got a little bit more. We can do
awesome, man. Because
I think we could go for about 10 more minutes, and then I gotta get going. Sorry, I just got some other calls I gotta take.
No, I completely understand, man. We've got to do it again sometime, because I love having these deep and meaningful conversations and really talking about these issues in society, because I saw that there's a lot of people saying there's two sides of the spectrum. There's the Black Lives Movement is not a Marxist movement, and there's the other side which says the Black Lives Movement is. And Marxism is a huge topic that we can unravel if we want. But why, for people that don't know, why is the Black Lives Movement considered, in your point of view, a Marxist movement?
They're a Marxist movement because if you look on their website and see the things that they talk about, they are not about supporting individual freedoms, individual liberties. They're all about the collective, right? It's all about a collective group. It's about taking away the nuclear family, which it says on their website, which is just blows my mind that people don't go on there. I mean, they want to get rid of the police, which holds people accountable. So it's a Marxist movement because it doesn't want people to have personal responsibility. It wants to tell people that there are these injustices and these problems happening in their communities, at their offices, within their what am I trying to think? Their own social circles, whatever it may be. There are these injustices, and that they have to come together as like a collective group to disband the establishment, disband the things that are going on in this country, capitalism in this country, or the American government as we know it. I mean, there was just this lady in, I believe it was Portland, who was on video. It's going viral. She was a Black Lives Matter, one of the leaders in the movement. And she said, it's time for us to disband America as we know it. I mean, this is what they want to do. And then, many of these people, they say, oh, I love America. I just want to radically transform it. If you had a wife and you said, oh, I love my wife, but I want to radically transform her, does that mean you love your wife very much? No, of course not. So it's all a farce. And these people actually do hate our country. They hate what our country was founded on. They want to radically transform it. And
there's millions of people that follow the movement, and most of which are blind to what's really going on behind it. There's always underneath the surface a much deeper issue that it's always to do with control. There's a huge amount of hate, and if no one sees it, then how are you going to change it? Like, how are you going to, and that's the other area that I want to sort of ask you about, convincing, or is it more like convincing people? Or there's a lot of, I watch a lot of, what's his name? The Change My Mind with Stephen Crowder as well. Mm-hmm. I love how sometimes it sort of makes me frustrated at the thought process of a lot of people and how naive they are. And then I love how Stephen just hits the nail right on the head all the time, but people hate him for it. There's a lot of, and that's part of the problem, is people hate because they don't understand. And the automatic response is, I'm going to hate something because it's easy for me to hate. It's like we are conditioned to hate and we have to fight against it. Like I was saying before, as part of our sinful nature. And even some Christians don't know. And I'm guilty.
I'd say most Christians don't know.
Oh, most Christians. Yeah. Like I'm guilty of hating what I don't understand. It's like automatically we're going to it. And I'm curious, is there a way to actually convince someone that that's not the way to go?
There's a very long question. The answer to this one could be very long. There's a lot that goes into it. I will say, if you guys have seen any of the videos that I do, I mean, there are lots of people who do man on the street videos, but not to sound vain, I don't think there's anyone who does it quite like I do. I think I have a very unique way of how I do it. I'm non-confrontational. I actually change a lot of the people's minds who I talk to. I don't make the videos for conservatives. I make the videos for everyone. I want everyone to see my video and say, this is how you talk to someone, or this is how you can change their mind on an issue. I mean, I'm actually, might be working on a book about this very thing right now, which is very
awesome,
cool.
Man.
But how to win on all these topics, like every political issue, and kind of how to persuade people and debate people and win on these topics without being an asshole, and there are ways to do it. The number one thing that I've figured out is, first of all, confidence. If you're confident in what you have no reason to get angry. Only a wild person can control their own emotions. You need to be able to control your emotions wherever, in any situation. And the second thing is, you need to ask them the questions. Don't be put on the defense where they're asking you the questions and making you have to explain themselves. If you're confident and you actually have the knowledge to back up what you're saying, ask them the questions, like about climate change. This is exactly what I do. And then they expose themselves. You say, how many years do you think the world has until it's ended? And they say, 10 years. And you say, why do you think that? And then they follow it up. And then you say, well, this study shows that actually, it's not rising at that rate. What do you think of that? So if you have the information, you can ask them questions to have to rationalize themselves. Then the wheels start turning in their head. I do these interviews and people don't even know that I'm a conservative. Like, they don't even know. I just look like another, student on their campus, or someone who's just coming up and asking questions for a YouTube video. They don't even know. And it's like, I like that. I don't want them to know that I'm, some Republican type of person or something like that. Their mind's not going to be changed if it's that way. You need to come at them openly and willing to have the information to be able to ask them the questions, so they have to rationalize themselves.
Do you ever get nervous?
I used to get a little bit nervous. I mean, I've gone to some of these marches, and people, now that I've gotten more popular, people will know who I am at some of the bigger marches where there's a lot of people concentrated who are on the left and they hate me. So, I do get sometimes nervous at things like that. But my cameraman, he has a tripod, a big stick. So I know he's looking out for me. If anything
is he martial arts trained as well?
No, he's not. I would probably have to defend him if everything to be honest.
Just grab the stick and go for it.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's great, man. Like I've seen some of these marches, and they're pretty insane. Like, get pretty heated. And
insane.
In Australia, we had one just recently with the George Floyd case as well, and Black Lives Matter. But instead, we had the Aboriginals Matter, which is not a bad thing at all. I think that there needs to be some sort of level of understanding and inclusion. But I think they just take it too far. Like, the moment we see America and what America's doing, we follow suit. It's like America's the big brother and we're the little brother, and we look up to the big brother. So state of America, we just follow along with it. And it's like, there's no separation. Like, we can't make our own beliefs. We just follow what America's doing and all that sort of stuff, which I think is sad. Like, you got two sides as well. It's crazy, but not as bad as America.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah,
that's definitely true. It's a tough place to be, but these young people, I don't blame many of them for what they do at all. It's not their fault. I mean, they feel disenfranchised with America. They feel like their country doesn't support them. They feel like they can't make a lot of money. I mean, if you look at the amount of wealth that my generation owns at the same age in their life that, baby boomers owned in America, that generational wealth, like young people own so much less wealth. Like, they are not saving money, even though things have gone cheaper. You can get a TV for $100 now. The price of healthcare has gone up. The price of living expenses, of insurance, like all these things have gone up. So young people in America, and this is a world problem too, because of globalization, I mean, they're poor, they just don't have a lot of savings and good family lives and things like that. So, sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but it's like why these people are doing what they do. They feel disenfranchised with their country. So someone comes on and says, we want a revolution, or we want to give you free stuff, whatever it might be. Then of course they're going to be like, hell yeah, like, let's go. Like, they're charging forward with it because no one else has given them an answer of how they're supposed to feed their family or be able to afford their medical care.
And I think the word free as well sort of appeals and attracts people at the same time. But is it really free?
No. I feel like it just hasn't. I feel like that's a new phenomenon. I feel like if you went back in time and you told people that they could get something for free when they already have a good program in place already and it's cheap and affordable and they already have something, and you told them, oh, you can get something free from the government now. They would have been like, hell no. No way. I love what I have now. Why would I want the government to give me something? I feel like I could be wrong because I'm just pontificating on that, but there could be I think that people are more easily swayed now to want some government handout than they would have been throughout history.
I think we can unpack that a bit if we had more time as well, but I really do appreciate your time today, Will. I really enjoyed speaking to you. Hope to do it again sometime. So thank you so much for coming on the Story Box podcast and sharing a little bit about your story.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.